Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining our third and final webinar on how shoppers want to pay. Today, we're going to focus specifically on the US market, but I'm just going to wait a couple seconds just to give enough time for everybody to join. Okay. I'm Kati Chitrakorn, Retail and Marketing Editor at Vogue Business, an online fashion business publication launched by Condé Nast. Today, I'm joined by Holly Worst, who is Director of Strategy and Marketing at Worldpay from FIS. Holly, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Katie. We're really excited. Working with you guys has been awesome, and we're excited to preview our Retail Global Payments Report with the co-branded content with you guys, and it's really fun, so thank you.
Absolutely, the feeling is mutual. As Holly mentioned, this webinar is part of a branded content series between Vogue Business and Wordpay from FIS. And in case you missed our previous webinars on how shoppers want to pay in Europe and in Asia, these will be available online on YouTube and on the Vogue Business website. And at the end of this webinar, there will also be a link on the screen that you can download to see our report. So today we will discuss how consumer behavior is changing in the United States, how the payments industry is innovating and what's driving those shifts, and looking ahead, the biggest payment opportunities and challenges that are unique to America. Holly, so I just thought we could begin by talking about your observations of the payment solutions market in the US. Based on your knowledge of local payment preferences and practices, maybe you could start by providing an overview on how people pay and how you see that changing?
Yeah, so what's really exciting about the US is it's actually one of the largest payment countries in the world. And not only that, a lot of the payment infrastructure type companies like Visa, MasterCard, Amazon, Google, Apple, they were all headquartered and started here. So these companies that are innovating the way we pay today and the way we'll pay in the future, that all, kind of comes from the US, which is great. And another thing is the US has always been a leader in digital payments. So something we keep hearing a lot about, but we've been using cards forever. So I think we've all had one since as soon as we started accepting money and paying for things when we were kids. So that's really cool. However, where we are the leaders in that payment infrastructure and offering the digital payments, we sometimes lag in adopting the payment technology and innovation that you see in other parts of the world, especially Asia. So because of this, I really think the three big payments trends that we're going to see in the US going forward are the adoption of digital and mobile wallets. So that's an example of you have your phone and you can either one of two ways, put a credit card on Apple Pay or Samsung Pay and use that to pay for stuff, or it's something like a Starbucks app where you load funds on an app and use that to pay for stuff. So to give you an example of how this could grow in the US is currently right now, it's only about 24% of payments, but in Asia, it's almost 60%. There's a big gap there that we can fill. Another trend that we're seeing and that we definitely are going to see in the US is buy now, pay later. So again, that has two forms of that payment. So one is try before you buy. So you can, and this is really relevant for retail as well, is you can buy stuff and without ever paying for it, try stuff on and then only pay for what you want and return the rest. Or for some of the more expensive fashion items, you can pay in installments. So whether that's 3 months, 4 months, 3 weeks, whatever you need. There's a lot of companies out there doing some innovative stuff. And to show you again, in the US, we've always tended to work on credit. So we haven't really had a lot of buy now, pay later here. So it's only 1% of e-com transactions. But in Sweden, it's 25%. Wow. And that's where Klarna originated. So it definitely has some big stuff there. But in Australia, where Afterpay, another big company, started, about 8% of transactions. To give you guys, that's how big PayPal has become. So definitely, I think in the US, retailers should be looking out for buy now, pay later.
No, that is really interesting. And we have some interesting data coming up later as well. So I'd love to come back to buy now, pay later. But can you share some insights into what you're seeing in terms of how American shoppers are and how, what makes them different to consumers elsewhere in the world? Because I assume that will impact payment trends and the way they want to pay.
Yeah, so I think something we're seeing a lot of, especially in the US, is shoppers are becoming more digitally savvy. So we often talk about Gen Z, and I mean, I laugh because I think the first time I started working, it was millennials this, millennials that, and now you're hearing Gen Z this, Gen Z that. So that's people who were born between 1995 to 2015, and they're the first generation born with computers and mobile already heavy in use, and they make up about 20% of the US population. So with this kind of younger, more digitally savvy consumers coming into the market, this is going to impact payments in the sense that they're already used to technology. So as a retailer, if you're scared to adopt, say, digital mobile wallets or maybe VR tech because you don't think your consumer is going to understand it, you don't have to worry about that because these kids can get something out of the box and not even read the instructions and know how to make it work. Another aspect, though, is that consumers today, and Gen Z especially, they really expect things to be very fast, very simple, and personalized to them. They are not going to want to type in credit card information at checkout. So offering ways in the payments to make that automatic for them is going to be extremely important. And another thing is they spend a ton of time on social media. I think we've all seen the rise of TikTok during COVID and all the fun videos, but people are spending a ton of time watching these videos and consuming this content. So social commerce is going to become another shop front for retailers, and you're going to be able to get a lot more sales out of your social media followers. But when it comes to like uniqueness, I guess, in terms of these consumers versus the rest of the world, the really big difference with US shoppers is our use of credit. So we are addicted, one, to credit card points. I think often people are always, which credit card will give me the most points. We're very used to running off of debt. So, whether it's your school debt, your mortgage, your car debt, it's just something that the American consumer has always been more comfortable with than the rest of the world. And I think that has implications on a lot of loyalty and brand loyalty. So I think the American consumer tends to be a little, who's going to give me more points for this purchase, or who's going to give me a better deal for this purchase that you may not see in other parts of the world. So it's really important to also kind of think about that brand loyalty when you're marketing to the American consumer.
No, absolutely. I think you made some really interesting points there. And you're absolutely right as well that Gen Z are naturally digital. Like, this is a generation that's never grown up without Amazon or Facebook or Google. So that's obviously going to impact their, buying and payment decisions. If we zero in on fashion brands, how can these companies potentially benefit from rethinking their payment strategies? Like, what untapped potential revenue is there?
Yeah, I really love this question because I actually used to work for a brand and a retailer and a manufacturer, a footwear manufacturer. And I worked on the product team, and I remember we used to spend so much time thinking about how amazing can we make this product. And I think that's exactly what retailers tend to do, is like we focus on product and merchandising and make sure that's right. We used to have a saying, if the product is good, it'll sell itself. But payment is the very bottom of that sales conversion funnel. So it's extremely important, and it's super easy to get it wrong. So how frustrating would it be to have this awesome product that at the very end of the day, your customer can't actually make that purchase? So what I think is really important when it comes to thinking of your payment strategy is that payments can actually help you do two things. One, increase your revenue, and two, decrease your costs. On the revenue side, there's, this is getting to the tech side of things, but we can help you increase your card authorization rate. So it's extremely frustrating that maybe sometimes the customer goes to buy something and their card is declined. And sometimes there's no reason for the decline. They type in the information right. It's not fraud. They say who they say they are. Just something in the back end happens. So we can help you increase those authorization rates, and it's important for your payment strategy to think about that. Another aspect of opening up revenue streams is your payment methods that you offer. So there are so many payment methods out there that vary greatly by each country. We have this tool called the uplift calculator, and you can actually see what would be your potential revenue uplift by offering local payment methods within markets. So say, for example, you're in Germany and GiroCard, you can see what could be your revenue uplift there, or what could be your revenue uplift in the States by offering Klarna. I think that was something I didn't really realize until I got into the payments industry, that there are so many people that you can reach because they only shop with PayPal. If you're not offering PayPal, you're eliminating your brand from those types of customers. And then lastly, on the cost side, which we all love and care about, especially in today's world where it's all about cutting as much cost as possible, but rethinking your payment strategy can help you take a look at fraud and chargebacks. This becomes especially more important as we move sales to online. There's actually an increase in fraud when we move to online sales. And that's because when you're in store, it's much harder to commit fraud because you get to look at the credit card, you get to look at your ID, sometimes you have a biometric payment, it's just much harder. But when you move online, it's much easier to fake some of that stuff. So looking at your payment strategy and taking a look at that aspect, we can really help you reduce costs there as well.
Definitely. But if there are so many benefits, why aren't more brands on board? Like, what have you seen to be the biggest challenges to entry?
Yeah, so I think, honestly, when you think about it, is retailers and fashion brands, they focus a lot, again, on that product and merchandising. So you hire the best designers in the world, you hire the best product people, you hire the best sales reps to make sure you get your brand out there. And payments just tended to be one of the last things that people thought about. But we are starting to see more retailers hire payments teams and really think about the end of that sales conversion funnel. And so and even if you don't hire a team, that's what companies like ours are for, even some of our competitors. We're there to help you become the retail payment experts and really complete the journey. But yeah, I think it's just been a lack of focus, but we're here and there's lots of research out there to help arm retailers with what they need to succeed.
Yes. And something else I've also been wondering is how big a part has COVID-19 played in these changes, and like what are the implications of the pandemic, in the US? So if we look at this graph on the screen, it shows a percentage of sales made via cash on delivery, and you can see that it's highest in Latin America, followed by North America, which is very close to Europe in their behavior. Like, do you think there are market specifics related to the pace of becoming cashless, and are cash and ATMs eventually going to become a thing of the past?
Yeah, I don't think cash will ever disappear, at least in my lifetime, maybe in the future past that. But really what COVID has done and what we've seen is it's really sped up e-commerce sales. So not only are we seeing people who have never shopped online before finally shop for the first time, but also it's just new categories. So, I shop online a lot, but I had never bought groceries before online. And that's something that I did regularly during COVID, and something I'll probably continue once lockdown, if it ever ends. But yeah, so with that move to e-com, that's when digital payments and the, moving away from cash really comes into play, because, what we're seeing the stats here, cash on delivery, that's where you order something online and pay for it in cash later. That's really difficult to implement. And that's really, that helps a lot in developing countries. It's just something without the infrastructure. But somewhere in the US where we already have the infrastructure in place, we'll see cash disappear a little bit and just move to digital payments, and digital and mobile wallets definitely was accelerated by COVID. So I think the report we did was actually pre-COVID, unfortunately, but it showed that the use of digital and mobile wallets was about 24% today and expected to be 37% by 2023. But I guarantee when we do this next year, we're going to see numbers of 45 to 50% by 2023, just because, I don't know, I'm sure you guys saw it in the US, but we saw it in the UK as well. There were actual companies that were saying we will not accept cash and you need to pay with a card. Yes. For that contactless experience. So while cash will never be out, California right now is actually trying to make it illegal to not accept cash. We'll just see more and more people move to digital wallets, and it really is faster and easier, and you can forget your wallet at home and just bring your phone out all the time. So it has a lot of benefits as well.
No, absolutely. I'm definitely seeing that here in London too, the more of the smaller shops. choosing not to accept cash during this period. Another thing I was interested to explore as well is kind of the nuances of banking preferences of Gen Z. We touched on them a little bit at the beginning of this conversation, and I was just interested to know, like, what payment options do you see this consumer gravitating towards? If we look on screen, the graph here shows the popularity of buy now, pay later, which we can see has been hugely adopted in Europe, but is lagging in North America and Asia Pacific. What are your thoughts on this, Holly, and what are the reasons for this?
Yeah, so buy now, pay later, that's a huge thing we're talking about here at Worldpay, especially in the retail vertical, and especially during COVID. So again, as we said earlier, it's one of two methods. So it's try before you buy, but it's also paying for things in installments. And so especially, it's not just for, say you can't afford the dress, but right today, but you can afford it over time. You can buy that nice dress for that special occasion. It's a budgeting tool. So you're seeing people just say, like, you know what, I don't need to pay for the dress all up front. Let me, move it across a couple of months. But for a retailer, it actually provides a lot of benefits. So companies like Klarna and Afterpay have done a ton of research on their transaction data, and they show that it actually increases the basket size and the average transaction value by up to 20 to 30%. And even with some retailers, it's doubling the transaction size. Mm-hmm. Another aspect for retailers is that it reduces the number of return transactions, which ultimately saves you money. So for example, if I buy 5 things from Zara, but I only keep 2 and return 3, I was actually only charged 1 time for those 2 items. So you're saving on all the cost per transaction as a retailer. But I would say kind of Gen Z in general, that's something we should be aware of with them, is they tend to shop in all aspects and facets of your channels that you're offering. So whether that's mobile, online, on a desktop website, is it on social media, or is it in store? We call this omnichannel payments. So I think it's really important that retailers start to think about omnichannel in the future and offering this seamless journey that no matter where your customer is, they're going to get the same brands, the same feeling, the same product, the same price everywhere. And I think payments is actually really well placed to be a partner with retailers during that journey, because if I walk into a store, you're not necessarily going to know that it's Holly, Zara's #1 fan who shops online and spends a lot of money. And today I happen to go into the store. But hey, guess what? If I use my same credit card and all of a sudden I swipe my card or tap my card, you'll now automatically recognize, oh, this is Holly. Her card is also linked to her online account. Now I know everything about her and her payment transaction journey with us. So that's where I think payments can play a really fun part there for Gen Z and just trends in general.
Sure. I think another thing we're seeing as well is that abandoned baskets have become really asymptomatic of this era, and Gen Z really lead on indecisiveness. Is this a problem that payment systems can help solve?
Yeah, the elusive abandoned baskets. I think this will be the bane of every retailer's existence for the end of time, is how can you get customers to make that one extra step and make that purchase? And I apologize to all retailers on the call, because I am definitely a big culprit of this, often putting many things in my basket and leaving it. But there's a really good company out there. They're called the Baymart Institute. And every year they do a research study on the user experience of shoppers online. And they ask the question of, why do you abandon your shopping basket? And 7 of the top 10 reasons are payments related. So 100%, this is something payments can help you fix. And one of my favorites, and something that's quite easy for retailers to implement, is that one-click checkout. We're all lazy. None of us want to type in our home address every single time. None of us want to type in our credit card information. So by offering this one-click checkout, you're eliminating some of the friction in the shopping journey. And we found that 50% of customers are actually more likely to purchase from a retailer who offers this functionality. And another big thing, like one of the top reasons actually why consumers would abandon their basket, is basically because they don't trust your website. And that's something that payments 100% can help solve. And we actually conduct a lot of research on this just to see if there are little tips and tricks here and there to help consumers feel like they can trust your site and make it feel more secure. So there's something as little as adding a lock symbol at the checkout experience and on your website, that even though it doesn't mean anything and you didn't implement new technologies, that it offers that illusion that, yes, this is a safe and secure site, and makes consumers more likely to go through with the purchase.
No, great advice. And another interesting shift that we're seeing in Western markets like the US is that social media channels are no longer just networking platforms, they become digital marketplaces. Like, what does the rise of social commerce mean for, digital payments, and what are the changes that you're seeing?
Yeah, if this could be my one piece of advice that everyone remembers off of this call, is definitely focus on your social media sites going forward. No longer we are in the day where it's just, it's not a marketing tool anymore. It's now an extra storefront and a way for people to buy things. And we saw this because this year, Facebook Shops and Instagram Shops were released. So before, you could always shop on Instagram, but it redirected you back to your own website. And again, when we talk about eliminating friction in the customer journey, every time you redirect a customer, you immediately find people drop off. So now you can actually complete the purchase within the app, and making it that much easier for people to shop on your site. So we did some research actually that found that 50% of fashion customers and 60% of beauty customers shop through social media within the last year. So that's half of your customers, if not more, wanting to go to your social media site and buy something. So definitely put focus there. And when it comes to digital payments or payments in general, it's again, making that journey super frictionless. So definitely enable Apple Pay, Google Pay, and digital mobile wallets within the app, because then they're already on their phone and they're already scrolling on their Instagram feed. They could just one click pay with Apple Pay. Again, it just makes it that much easier for them to go through with the purchase.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So from what we've seen is that from a new generation of customers to kind of like systems being modernized and an emphasis on experiences, all of these coming together point to a really exciting future for the payments industry. Looking ahead, what excites you most about the payment opportunities in fashion, and how do you see it evolving, particularly in the US?
Yeah, I mean, the most fun thing that I could see coming up for fashion in the next few years is this virtual reality and augmented reality technology. So this is something, the other day I was trying to buy a pair of sunglasses, and since you can't go into the shop, I went on Ray-Ban's website and I could actually see what the glasses would look like. So that's augmented reality. And then while in the experience, one click, pay for Apple Pay. And guess what? They looked the same in real life. So I think we're starting to see that augmented reality and virtual reality, it's starting to look more like real life, and consumers are getting more and more, used to this technology and making payments through it or even experiencing it. And COVID actually increased the use and purchases of some of the Oculus headsets that are needed for virtual reality. So I look forward to seeing what all of you guys in the fashion brands will be doing within those experiences in the future, because they're going to become mainstream. And payments, we have a part to play in that as well, as making sure you can make a payment within the virtual experience. Another thing, a little more on the geeky side, is blockchain. So you hear a lot of that, the Bitcoin blockchain, everything that came out, really confusing, I think, for retailers to try to understand this. And it's definitely the future of payments. But it's not just that. When we talk about retailers trying to become more sustainable, blockchain comes into play here, where you can track the product from farm to store, but your payments can also follow you along that journey. And it makes payments a lot safer and secure and a lot cheaper. So you're creating this virtual currency and creating smart contracts. It's really geeky and a whole nother topic, but it just creates this environment for retailers and suppliers to save money and be secure and trust each other when making these contracts. And I think we'll see a lot more of that in the next 5 years for sure. Another aspect is regulation. Everyone always hates to hear about it, but it's definitely triggering some innovation in the payment space, especially with, it's called stronger customer authentication. which means a customer needs to verify that this is me, and we need to get, stronger and better at it. So there's some stuff coming around PSD2, which is requiring two-step authentication. So it's going to push biometric payments into the future. So already I use my face to pay for many things with when I use my mobile wallet, but you'll start to see more of that. Is, can it be your voice? Can it be your fingerprint? Can it be your face? Can it just be the fact that you own the phone? I'm really intrigued to see how that moves in the future for retailers.
Thank you so much, Holly. So to summarize, today we've discussed how the US is one of the largest payments country in the world. As you mentioned, it's home to the world's leading payment companies like Visa, MasterCard, Apple, and more. But the country lags in payment technologies like digital wallets and buy now, pay later, which accounts for only 1% of e-commerce transactions in the United States. We've learned that fashion consumers outpace general consumers when it comes to adopting advanced payment technologies. But the biggest challenge really is for retailers to understand what to offer in which country. And with the right vision, the future holds great opportunities. And we've discussed how a combination of new regulations, along with the increased adoption of things like our AR and VR, will drive innovation in the industry, particularly as social commerce continues to grow. So for further reading or data on this topic, the link to download the branded content research that Vogue Business worked on with Worldpay from FIS will be available to download at the end of this webinar. And now we'll move on to questions from the audience, which you can submit either through the Q&A function via Zoom, or you can contact Vogue Business directly. The first one that came in quite early on is, the US is such a large internal market that many Americans don't really think about shopping abroad. How can international companies tempt more US shoppers to buy cross-border? What are your thoughts on that, Holly?
Yeah, I think this is always, it's a fun topic, as I really do believe that the world is going to just become one mass shopping mall at some point. But something that really helps is being very upfront with your costs. So the biggest barrier for someone buying something overseas is they see that, oh, my shipping is really expensive, or, oh, you have this extra tax or duty rate added to it. And you know what? People are okay paying those things as long as you tell them. And as long as you're very upfront that this is exactly what it costs and this is exactly what you're going to get, because you're always going to find these customers who search for that unique object that they can only find in Asia or in London. And so there's always going to be a customer for that. But again, it's about that transparency and that honesty upfront.
Thank you, Holly. I have a question that's come in from Michael, who says, how important will it be for companies to differentiate through brand and marketing strategies? Will this be even more important to win the hearts and minds of younger consumers?
Yeah, for sure. Something that's happening with Gen Z, I think, more than others, and we're kind of seeing it in today's political climate as well, and COVID's brought a lot of it out, is they vote a lot with their dollar. So they want to buy from brands who really speak to them, who really represent what they believe in. We call it social consumerism. So I think it is really important for each brand and retailer out there to find their unique voice, understand who is their customer, and really market to them in the way that they want to be spoken to. Is it a casual voice, a fun voice? And with that also comes payment methods. So if your consumer is traditionally older or from a certain region in the world, you're going to have to offer payment methods that are specific to them. But if you're targeting, young, digital, hip savvy customers, then you want that online experience and those digital payments. So not only is it a brand thing, but also payments play a piece of that as well when going after those certain types of customers.
Absolutely. And the final question we have from Martina is, she would like to ask how and when exactly will blockchain technologies and cryptocurrencies start to really be implemented and normalized in Western markets?
Yeah, the question we all want. It's not going to be anytime soon in the next 1 or 2 years, but it's something that we're all working on, and it's out there. And, you saw Facebook Libra try to take off. They hit some, they ran into some issues, and then it's coming back on again. So I think definitely within the next 5 years, you'll see a lot more of it, and it's going to come in stages. I think, again, like we said, the sustainability, the blockchain aspect of tracking your product and tracking your payments that'll probably come, you know, a lot quicker than every consumer switching over to a cryptocurrency and we all picking the same cryptocurrency to go after. So again, I think 5 years from now, that'll definitely be mainstream. So put it in the works of your plan, but nothing more long-term strategy than something to do next year.
Well, thank you so much, Holly, for all of your insights. They were so valuable.
Thanks, Katie.
So this is all the time we have for today, but if you have any further questions that we didn't get around to or any feedback you'd like to share, please do contact Vogue Business directly or Holly, as we would love to hear from you. Our emails are on the screen alongside a link to download our report. Thanks so much. Have a great day, everyone.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.